This week on Entrepreneurs, we meet some of Australia's youngest business builders and those who are helping young entrepreneurs to shine. I'm Jack Delosa, and Entrepreneurs starts now.
On Sky News Business, this is Entrepreneurs.
Welcome to Entrepreneurs, where we talk directly to the founders of Australian businesses, from startups and small business owners to the icons of industry. We have an incredibly exciting lineup tonight with some very young Australians who are having a big impact, not only in this country, but on a global scale. We have Ali Katinas, who is one of Australia's youngest CEOs, and at the age of 17, already the founder of several businesses. I'm very much looking forward to that conversation. And later we'll be hearing from former Australian of the Year and robotics whiz Marita Cheng and Murray Hurst, who is helping student entrepreneurs to get their startups up and running. First, let's kick things off with the little legend Jack Byrne, who at the age of 10 launched the fundraising campaign Fiver for a Farmer in August of this year. Now, in just 2 months, Jack raised over $1 million for Australian farmers. Jack, well done.
Thank you.
You are good, man. Now, I've got a bit of a bone to pick with you, Jack. In business circles, I'm called Young Jack, but now there's a younger Jack. What are we going to do about that?
I don't really know.
Now, Jack, well done on everything you've done. How did you start Fiver for a Farmer?
At school, we were learning about the drought and how it was affecting kids my age and their mums and dads, and how they were even skipping out on school just to help their mums and dads on the farm. And I went home to Mum and said, we've got to do more. And I sent an email to 4 people, our local newspaper, Channel 9, Sunrise and the Daily Telegraph. And the next morning, Mum's phone was getting called left, right and centre because I put down the bottom my mum's phone number is her phone number, and everyone started calling.
Well done. Now, $1 million in 5 weeks, Jack.
Yeah.
That is extraordinary. How did you do that?
I just think it all happened because everyone wanted to help and they didn't know how to, and everyone can get $5. And Mum was saying in the car, like, not everyone can get $5. Well, you can, because you go and knock on your neighbour's door and say, can I have $1 for this? Go to take the bins out. It's really cool.
And you have done a lot of media since. You've become quite a famous young man. Did you imagine and envisage this happening to you?
Not at all. I just thought, like, maybe my school would do it. It would raise a bit of money and it would all go to the farmers. And didn't happen.
What did your parents and teachers say when you told them that you wanted to do this?
Well, when Mum was speaking to me about it, she always tells me use your small but mighty voice, and you can do anything you want if you just put your mind to it. And when, like, saying that, she just supported me all the way, so did Dad. And my little sister, all my friends, they all just supported me so much.
You deserve it, mate. You've done an incredibly good job, and I'll come back to you in a moment. Ali, welcome to Entrepreneurs. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, similar, you started your first business at the age of 11, which was a marketing company. What prompted and catalysed you to start your first business?
There were a couple things. I had seen my mum work in a corporate job all my life, and I would often go to meetings with her and sit in the hallway while she was doing a presentation, so I was always very involved in her career, I guess. And she left a corporate job and started her own business a couple months before, and I saw her doing something that she loved so much, and that really inspired me. And I also am very passionate about performing. I have big dreams of doing acting, and I have a dance background, and I recognise that that's not the most financially sustainable career unless you make it big. But I do it because I love it, not because I want to be, rich or whatever. So I started a business so that I could teach myself to be financially secure, and so that I could do what I wanted to do and not work as a waitress like so many Australian actors do when they move to LA.
And you've got 2 or 3 ventures at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about them.
So there's Freedom Scrub, which is kind of my main focus at the moment. So we make ethical body scrubs with a slavery-free supply chain.
Yep.
And for every scrub that we sell, we help support the rehabilitation of women rescued from human trafficking in Australia.
Right.
And through our coffee supply chain, we also support the rehabilitation of rescued child soldiers.
Mm.
And then I'm also working on a new project at the moment called the Unlearn Project, which is basically centred around educating today's young people about business and about entrepreneurship with a strong focus on social impact, because I've always been really driven and really cared about giving back, and so many young people today do, like Jack. And so I want to really foster that kind of social entrepreneur in the young people of Australia.
That's incredible and something that needs to be done, and I'm really happy that you are doing that. Having a social impact is clearly something that's really important to you, right? You can see that throughout your entire career. Mm-hmm. Do you think the generation that's coming up is more socially conscious and is looking to make the world a better place?
Yeah, for sure. I think with social media, that's kind of opened up the floodgate of information, and now more than ever, my age group, even younger, are open to all the kind of horrible things that are happening in the world, and whether it's natural disasters or whether it's the issues that, like economically, we're having in Australia with the drought, or whether it's things like human trafficking and slavery. There's so many world issues that our young people have their eyes open to more than ever. And so now that we have this new source of information and education that we're not necessarily getting in school, I do think definitely we're more driven than ever to make an impact and do what we can, because our voices are heard more than ever.
Absolutely. It's incredibly refreshing. Now, you must have, you're often referred to as Australia's youngest CEO. Yeah. You must have some incredible stories about meeting with older professionals. You know, how do you navigate that?
It can be difficult. For a long time, and even still today, I get a lot of looks that are kind of like, what are you doing here? Like, you know, meeting with people that are in their 40s, 50s, that have all these notches under their belt when it comes to business. And I'm walking in there with my eager little smile, and I'm like, I'm really passionate about what I'm doing. It can, you know, get some mixed reactions. There's either people that are really inspired and think it's really incredible, or the more traditional mindset that are kind of a little shocked. Even recently, I wrote a chapter in a book, and we placed it in like a really big Australian bookstore, Better Read Than Dead. It's in Newtown, and so we were looking at other distribution channels, and I got some interesting conversations with book distributors that were a little condescending and didn't quite understand what I was doing there.
Right.
It's not until they really have a full conversation with me and see that I am actually really passionate about this, and I have done the necessary research and taught myself everything that I've had to. And I'm still learning, and I know that, but I'm definitely not someone that shouldn't be taken seriously.
Absolutely. Do you appreciate that people underestimate you sometimes?
Yeah,
yeah, right.
Yeah, for sure. I think, you know, it's one of those things like, just watch me, like watch that I can do it.
Absolutely.
And I face it even like at school, like with other classmates and things like that. It's just like, watch me do what you think I can't do.
Yes.
Because it just gives me more fuel to the fire.
And that's incredibly satisfying. That's good. Now, Jack, what advice do you give to young people who have a good idea and want to execute it, raise money, start a business? What advice do you give to them?
Just spread it as much as you can. Tell your mum, tell your mum's friends, tell your dad's friends, tell your dad, tell anyone you can, scream it off the rooftops even. Just tell everyone as much as you can, and just spread the word around, and you'll do great things.
Now, Jack, you must be busy and you're going to school. How do you balance both?
Well, a lot of my radio interviews and maybe newspaper things and TV are normally after school or before school. So maybe we might be 30 minutes late to school, or it'll be late after school, or you might just have to get up early for school.
And what do you want to do as you progress further and leave school and become a little bit older? Who do you want to be?
Well, I love to play rugby, so I want to be a rugby player.
Right.
But I definitely want to do something to help the world and make the world a better place.
Yes, yes. And you already have. Well done, man, well done. Elliot, what lessons did you learn from starting so young that you can share with people out there who might be looking to walk a similar path?
I think one of the biggest ones from my experience is not letting the kind of emotions get in the way when it comes to business. I'm quite a emotionally sensitive person, and particularly early on, I would take a lot of things personally, and that isn't the best way to go about things, because there's so many no's in business. And it does take a few to kind of get used to it and understand that that's just the world that it is. But yeah, try not to let those emotions get the better of you. And if you need to hold your cards close to your chest and maybe not let as many people in on what you're doing straight away, then do it, because, you know, business is quite cutthroat sometimes.
How did you develop that emotional thick skin as the years passed?
I do have a past of bullying. From a very young age, I was bullied quite badly in school, and as much as it was horrible, and I, you know, had a really rough time for a long time, and even, you know, up until last year, dealing with things at school, it made me the person that I am today, both in terms of my empathy for other people, but also it made me stronger, and it made me be able to cope with things like this that sometimes aren't, you know, what a normal young person would be coping with.
Yeah. Well done, well done to overcome that in such a powerful way. Now, your mum Lynn has been such an incredible supporter of you. Is she one of your mentors and advisors?
Yeah, I'm very lucky that I have a very close relationship with my mum, not just as a mother-daughter, but also on a professional level. And it's really amazing to work with her and learn from her, from everything she's learnt in business over the years, and see how both our brains work together, because we come from such different places.
It's an amazing partnership.
Yeah.
Jack, on the inside, what is it that motivates you to do what you do?
I think it's just seeing and thinking that they would help us if we were endangered and we had something to do that we couldn't fix. And just like, everyone helps each other. Like, my friends help me, I help them. And I think that's just what inspired me.
Yes, beautiful. Well done, team. What an amazing conversation, an amazing list of accomplishments, particularly at such a young age. Coming up after the break, we hear from a serial entrepreneur who helps mentor students and entrepreneurs. Welcome back to Entrepreneurs. We are chatting with Murray Herbst, the Director of Entrepreneurship at the University of Technology, Sydney. Murray, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
Now, you were a successful entrepreneur yourself, now obviously at University of Sydney. Talk to us about the current role and what you're doing there to catalyse entrepreneurship.
Okay, firstly, I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship at UTS. It's a new role that is kind of created based on the drive of UTS to expose 50% of our students to entrepreneurial experiences in the next 5 years.
Wow.
So this is a nice small goal to start with, to be thrown into, but it's resulted in a new program called UTS Startups, which is trying to inspire and support startups all across UTS.
And I'd imagine you'd see some incredible businesses coming through. Can you give us some examples of the startups that you're seeing?
Oh, God.
There's a few of them, I would imagine.
We're up to 93 after 3 months of starting, and it's like picking a favourite child. So they're all wonderful, but I'd point to things like new interfaces for drone control. There's one that's taking insects and using them to recycle biomass into protein to create food, so turning waste into food. There's one using data to treat diabetes in new ways. There's one that's doing physiotherapy using robots that is terrifying but very exciting. There's a full spectrum.
And, you know, entrepreneurship is a bit of a rising tide globally. Do you find that more and more students are sort of gravitating toward a more entrepreneurial path?
Yeah. That's the one thing that I'm noticing hugely that has surprised even me, that the reason we have the goal of 50% of students is because we did a survey and 40% of students said that they wanted to be running a startup in the future. And you look at that with 45,000 students, that is a massive opportunity, but also a massive obligation that you can't just feed into the same kind of programs. You can't set up a little accelerator program and expect that to reach that number of students. So you have to engage with every student, inspire every student, support every startup in a different kind of way.
We've obviously seen some incredible businesses come out of universities and dorm rooms and all of that sort of stuff. How hard is it, do you think, for students to start a business while they're studying, and do you encourage them to do just that?
Yes. Like, why wait?
Yeah, I agree.
You are not studying 24 hours a day, and there's kind of the balance of you can work very hard and you can have very great outcomes, but they're not necessarily linked together. So to be in an environment where you can work and have great results without having to do 24 hours a day yourself. At a place like UTS, you walk into FEIT and there's 11,000 engineering students that you can hopefully bring into what you're working on. It's a wonderful environment to get leverage and actual results from what you're doing.
Marie, one of my probably counterintuitive assumptions would be that if a university student is also working on a startup, it might actually help engage them to a greater degree in what they're learning through their university courses, because they've actually got some real world experience to apply it to. Do you see that at all?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing to see a room full of students that are working on startups and sharing what they're learning in the different courses that they're engaged in.
Right.
So in a way you get to take advantage of what everyone else is studying at the same time as what you're studying yourself.
What's the main mistake you see people making when they're starting their first business, particularly, you know, as a student?
Main mistake I'd say would be not aiming for something that's large enough.
Right, that's interesting.
It's hard work either way. You might as well do something where all that hard work pays off.
Yes, yes, right. And so what advice do you give to young people considering whether to start a business while they're a university student?
Don't listen to advice from people like me, number one. Number two, I think there's the biggest disadvantage that students have is a lack of experience, but the biggest advantage they have is a lack of experience.
Yes.
They can do things that no one else would come up with. And when you're younger, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have kids, you don't have a career to put on hold. There's no better time to launch a startup and try something ambitious than when you're a student. I'd say the advice is just do it. You'll learn, at the very least, a huge amount along the way, and at best, you can have something wonderfully successful.
And Director of Entrepreneurship at UTS, what are the core capabilities that you're training and educating, you know, into these startup businesses? What are the key things that you find they need?
That's the thing. I think every single business is completely different. So to try and say, here's the things you need to understand to run every single business is a really dangerous thing. That's why in the things that we're designing, it is about connecting people to support that is specific to what they're trying to address at that time, which might be in the university, it might be outside the university. Ideally, it's in this wonderful, vibrant startup ecosystem that we have in Sydney all around UTS. Wherever it is, we'll connect people to it.
Well done, mate. I applaud the work you're doing. I think that the more people, young people, people at university that can be starting building effective businesses at a young age is a really, really noble pursuit and something that's important for the country. So well done. Keep going. We're cheering you on.
Okay.
Thanks, Murray.
Stay tuned.
Cheers. Up next, we chat with the inspiring Marita Cheng. Welcome back. Marita Cheng was the 2012 Young Australian of the Year and went on to found a robot technology company called Obot in 2013. She also inspires girls to study engineering and tech through her movement RoboGals, a business that she founded at the age of just 19. She is now 29 years old. I spoke with Marita earlier today from San Francisco about what it's like to build a successful business at such a young age. Marita Cheng, welcome to Entrepreneurs.
Thanks for having me, Jack.
Now, Marita, you started your first business at the age of 18, Nudge. What led you to do that?
Well, my friends and I wanted to start the next Google, and you have to start somewhere. So we looked around for business opportunities, and one day a friend forgot to take her antibiotics, and so my co-founder said, let's start a business where we remind people to take their prescription medication, and so we did.
I love the work you're doing with RoboGals, which has become a global movement. What led you to take on that cause?
Well, going to university, there were only 5 girls in my class doing mechatronics engineering and computer science, and there were 50 people in the course. And I thought, you know, I could actually make a difference to the number of people in my class, the number of girls in my class, And so I started contacting schools around Melbourne to see if they were interested in having their girls learn about robotics and learn about engineering through robotics. And the response was overwhelming, and so over the next few years we expanded this globally, and now we have over 31 chapters, and we turned 10 years old this year.
That is amazing. And you talk, a term that you use that I love is makers, and you talk about a paradigm shift that people have coming through RoboGirls in terms of what they thought an engineer was before, and then the mind-blown moment, as you put it, in terms of what they understand an engineer to be once they learn a little bit more. Talk about that paradigm shift and why it's important for people to understand.
When you actually make something, you get so much pride and joy through seeing the work of your own imagination, your own hands coming to fruition. And so when we go to the classrooms and we tell them, oh, through engineering you can create things, like whatever you imagine in your head you can create with your hands, it kind of has girls see the world a bit differently. It has them look at the cars that their parents drive, or the kitchen appliances in their house, or the food that they eat. We invite them to question, where did all that come from? Who imagined these buildings that we go to that house artworks at the museums? We really invite them to ask those questions of themselves and just begin that journey of thinking, how were these things made? And how can I maybe one day make them?
One of the things that's noticeable about your journey, Marita, is just how much you've fused impact and social cause with commerce. Talk to us about that fusion and the tensions between it, but also some of the synergies that exist.
I think it's really important that if you work on a project, that it has an impact on people's lives. I mean, if you think about the biggest companies in the world, they're the biggest companies because their software runs our systems, or they have millions of people that use their processes in order to make the rest of their lives better. And so I think if you want to create something, then it makes sense to have a positive impact on people's lives. And so that's why I've been really drawn to projects where there is that human element, there is that human story that can be shared regardless of what technology we use.
Now, Marita, you were named Young Australian of the Year. What can we do in Australia to create more makers?
Oh, I think there's been so much that's happened in the past 10 years that has encouraged more young people to get involved in making. You know, there's more hacker spaces, there's more places where people can congregate and learn these skills. There's a lot more coding clubs and robotics workshops. So I think it's really amazing how the community is really teaching introductory electronic skills so that more young people can get involved in making stuff. And once you've learnt the basics, I feel like that unleashes people to follow their creativity, follow their imagination, and then make whatever their mind imagines them to make.
If we were to envisage that we had all of the makers and potential makers in Australia watching this right now, what's the #1 piece of advice you'd give to them?
Well, I think that if you're interested in making things and you want to learn more, then the best way to learn is to just get involved and work on a project. I know when I was going through school and I really wanted to learn about all of this, I wanted to make things, I didn't know how, and so I just started hanging around people who made things, people who were a little older than me, who had a bit more experience, and I'd just sit there and watch them as they made things. And then when I had enough confidence, I realized after a few projects that, oh, they follow this structure in order to achieve their projects. And so I started kind of copying them and following them along and just getting more and more involved as my confidence grew. And so if you want to learn how to make things, and just put yourself out there, don't be shy. Everyone has to start from somewhere. So, you know, tell people, I'm a beginner, I don't know anything, but I want to learn. Could you teach me? Makers can always use more help. And so if you're an extra set of keen hands, then you'll be able to join a project and learn those skills on the job.
Marita Cheng, you are a force of nature. I applaud the work that you are doing. Keep going. Thank you for joining us on Entrepreneurs.
Thanks, Jack.
Whatever you can imagine with your head, you can make with your hands. A profound message to leave us for tonight's episode. Thank you, Marita Chen, for joining us from San Francisco. Next week, we will explore the future of money. We speak to the founders who have created ventures focused on how the next generation spend their money. Kids' money, millennial money, virtual money. We are talking all things money. You can watch us anytime on 9 Now, Foxtel Go, and on the catch-up section of yourmoney.com.au. I'm Jack.